Hello everybody, welcome back to the Young Fan Podcast. A match reaction for Oxford United as they lose to Lincoln City by 2-0. Unfortunately, we had a pre-match chat, we had a pre-match talk, we previewed the game, we discussed the game before it kicked off. We had a really intense conversation about how Oxford United needed to be very, very wary of this Lincoln City side, who I think we can now definitely agree and definitely say are in a false position. That's nothing to take away from Oxford United's horrific performance today at Lincoln City, but ultimately it showed a few issues in this Oxford United side, and that was down to Lincoln City being very, very good. I'm not going to take anything away from Lincoln City having a really, really good game and playing some really, really good stuff, but yeah, it did highlight a few areas in Oxford United's side today that I think need to be looked at, because there are some worrying aspects of this performance. As usual, give your thoughts in the live chat. I want to hear from you, as per usual. You are what makes this podcast what it is, and I love hearing from you every time we do a match reaction, so that's no different today. Give your thoughts in there. It's not been a fantastic start to 2021. 2022. I keep forgetting what year we're in. We are in 2022. There is a new year, and it hasn't been the best of New Years. Last week, of course, we played against Cheltenham, and we drew that game 1-1. This week, it was much worse than that. Much, much worse than that. I think we find ourselves now in a really quite difficult position. There are so many aspects of this game that were just not good enough. But there could be some really, really dangerous repercussions coming from this result. I talk about a red card. I'm speaking about losing the game on face value is not good enough. But an injury to a really, really important player, Brannagan, who we intensely spoke about before the game as well. There's just too many factors for me, unfortunately, that we let ourselves down today. And it is really quite worrying. It really is quite worrying. Now, I want to get straight into the chat about the referee, but before that, I think we should sort of go and speak about how the game went and how Oxford United maybe approached the game in the wrong way. I think I had a horrible feeling about this game before it happened. I had a really quite dreaded feeling about how we may be a little bit complacent, and how maybe we could think this game was going to be much more simple than it was, and I think that's quite worrying. So I'll quickly change the lighting, make it a little bit lighter. But there was so many, before the game, I think we could all agree there was it had sort of a feeling of potential banana skin all over it. And obviously that's really quite worrying. There was always a sense of this game really could go either way. And they are in the relegation zone, but they certainly today did not play like a side in the relegation zone. They certainly did not play like a side that are in the relegation zone, and they will not be in the relegation zone come the end of the season. I can guarantee you of that. This Lincoln City side will not be sat in the relegation zone. They will not be fighting against relegation, I don't think, for much longer. They brought in a fantastic player in Morgan Whittaker, and before I go on and talk about Oxford's poor performance, Lincoln City deserve credit. They definitely deserve credit. They were very, very good, and they played some very, very good football. They played much better than Oxford United. They looked more comfortable in possession. They looked more comfortable out of possession than Oxford United did, and that's why they're going to come out of this game, I think, more than anything with 3 points. We weren't good, but Lincoln City certainly showed their quality. And like I said, we spoke about Morgan Whittaker. I think he's going to be a player that's going to drag them out of what, at the moment, sees them in a relegation battle. They won't be in a relegation battle for much longer, I can guarantee you of that. This Lincoln City side will not be in a relegation battle. They've had a very, very poor first half of the season. They're now going into the second half of the season, and I think they're going to play much better. I think they're going to do much better, and I think they're going to win a lot more games than they did in 2021, because they look well organised. And again, we spoke about it in the pre-match talk. We said how we need to be so careful. This is such a potential banana skin game. If we go in there with complacency, with a thinking of this game is against a relegation side, we don't have to be anywhere near our best. And these last 2 games, it has been worrying because we've played pretty poorly. We played worse today than we did against Cheltenham. It was 2 points dropped against Cheltenham, we felt. But it was certainly 3 points and 3 significant points dropped today. Let's not go overboard about it. Let's again be. I think it's important that we look at it with a level head. It's a poor result and it's a poor performance, and I think more than anything, It's the repercussions of that result today. It's the repercussions of that performance. It's the repercussions of the injuries, of the red card to Herbie Kane, a player that's been so significant for Oxford United so far this season. He's got himself a red card. For me, it didn't look like a red card straight away. I've watched it again since. To be honest, it looked like a tackle that just happened with force. And again, I don't know exactly if this is a red card or not. Again, I don't think we can comment on it too much. To me, he definitely went into the challenge with a sense of force and maybe with a sense of... Well, I think everyone goes into a sliding tackle with a sense of some sort of aggression. But I don't think it was overly malicious. The referee, I think, had a really quite poor game. But in a weird way, not really in a poor game where he's booking everybody, in a poor way because he was booking no one until he sent Herbie Kane off, which is so bizarre. He was I think he almost set this sort of expectation for the players that really anything can go, and we're going to try and have a really free game by not really giving any yellow cards out, and it's almost like he didn't have a yellow card until he booked Matty Taylor in the last 2 minutes of the game. He let this feeling, I think, for all the players that we don't really have. I'm not going to book everybody. And there's definitely some tackles in the game, especially in the first half, that should have seen yellow cards. That should have seen some bookings, and he wasn't going to do that. And he was very honest in his actions that he wasn't going to book those players. And I think that then allowed Oxford United and Lincoln City to then open the game up in a more aggressive sense and try and play a bit more of a dirty game, if you like, and try and, I guess Lincoln were trying to upset Oxford United. You can see why they wanted to do that. They're leading the game against the side like Oxford United that are our best when we're playing good football. They can break that game up if they can stop Oxford United by doing that, and stop Oxford United by getting momentum, able to play football. Then they're going to try and any way they can, and that's breaking up the play. They saw the referee wasn't going to do that, and they sort of took advantage of it. Today, there's a tackle where I don't think it was for me, it didn't look like a red card. For me, at first, it didn't look like a red card. It might well be a red card. I'm not saying whether it is or it isn't, but I can tell you one thing: it certainly was a controversial decision, considering the referee had not given any bookings out previous to that tackle. Paul Groves says, I thought we were absolutely shocking, to be honest. Hardly anyone could make an accurate pass, and most of their first touch went straight to Lincoln City players. Paul Groves, you summed that game up so well. I think the pass accuracy for Oxford United, and we'll look at the stats, we'll look at the tactic board in just a second, as we always do, but the pass accuracy for Oxford United today looked bad. I don't know what the stats are, but they looked really poor. We looked off it today. We just looked off it. And there's not many other ways of describing it. We just didn't look at the races. We looked really quite lackluster. We looked really quite poor, off the boil. I'm running out of sayings, but it was one of those. It was one of those games today where we didn't really get our groove on from the start until the end. You felt maybe that we needed something to just sort of spark for Oxford United, and we couldn't get it. Like I said, I know that sometimes people can get a little bit over the top when we talk about results like this. It's a poor result, it's a poor performance, and for me, it's not really about where we are now and what could happen. It sort of is what could happen. I mean, it is now a travel, going to a Wycombe game now without Herbie Kane and maybe without Cameron Brannagan, who's now injured. You go into a really quite difficult game against Wycombe, who are going to be physical, who are going to try and play the same sort of style that I guess Lincoln played when they started leading the game for 90 minutes. And we know that. We know how Wycombe play. We know Wycombe's style of play. We know the way that they try and approach games. We know the way they try and I guess, taunt their opposition, if you like. And again, we saw that with Lincoln when they started leading, and we're going to see that more often than not against Wycombe. We're now missing two very important players, two very significant players for that game. Again, like I said, I don't think we can comment on the red card too much. It looked... It's not really whether or not it's a red card or not. It's more about why was the referee not booking anyone before that? Why did he set an expectation for the players that the game isn't really going to see many yellow cards, and then one really quite quick, maybe slightly aggressive challenge that again, without further replay, we don't know whether or not it's a red card. He goes and sends him off. Again, whether or not it's an actual red card, whether or not he makes, whether or not it studs up on the ankle, I don't know. Again, those sort of things can decide whether or not it's a red card or not. Interested to see what Carl Robinson's got to say. I haven't heard his thoughts yet, of course. So, we will probably hear more about that. And, of course, he'll have his opinions on it. I don't think the referee was actually that bad until that moment. And it sounds obvious, it sounds stupid, and it sounds, like I'm watching the game in yellow tinted glasses. I was always like to try and avoid, but it did look like the referee was having one of those games where he was going to try and be a little bit, try and keep the game as free flowing as he could and try not break up the play. But it did get to a point where the players were almost abusing that, and the players were abusing the fact that he wasn't going to give any yellow cards. Herbie Kane maybe crossed the line a little bit too much, but where was the line? And that's the most important thing. The referee had allowed a line to be much lower than I think a lot of the Oxford United players thought. That's why that line was crossed. It was because we didn't really know exactly where the line was, because the referee had allowed that to be quite low. If you've just joined us, like Paul Groves has done, please give your thoughts this game as well. Maybe ask some questions. Maybe you didn't watch the game. I'm happy to answer them. But give your thoughts in that live chat. Subscribe, leave a like, all of which is free and easy, because I really, really want to sort of get your thoughts in that as well. We spoke about the pre-match, and we did a sort of show dedicated to this game and also to the January transfer window. Well, a lot of questions, a lot of things we spoke about. We reacted to that team news. Morgan Whittaker, a player that I mentioned at the start. I said he's a good signing, a very, very good signing. A player that I highlighted on the video, and I said one player that every League One club should sign. I highlighted Morgan Whittaker. We knew they wanted him in the summer. You can see why they wanted him in the summer, can't you, really? He was really, really quite good today. He took his goal very, very well. He looked lively. He looked quick. Again, it's one game, but he looked very, very good in that one game. And if I'm probably only going to watch Morgan Whittaker. That's probably the last time I'm going to see him play for Lincoln City this season. I'm not going to say that I watch every Lincoln game, or I probably will watch another Lincoln game this season. But if that's what he does in front of me for this one game, he certainly impressed me. He looked really, really good. He looked lively. He caused problems, and he got a goal as well. So face value, I think we got it right. We highlighted that Morgan Whittaker. We highlighted that area of the pitch. I thought Steve Seddon was exposed too much today. We'll come on to the individuals in just a second. But I think Morgan Whittaker today really, really shone and proved to be a really quite important player. So I guess the best way of, I've written this down, but I think the best way to sort of summarise that refereeing thing, briefly going back to it for the final time, I think it was just a sense of inconsistency with the decisions, a sense of inconsistency with how he wanted to referee the game. I think you got to really sort of plant your consistency really on your decisions, and really sort of show the players through your actions and through your refereeing decisions how you want the game to pan out. He didn't do that. Or he did, or we thought they did, and the players thought he had done, and then he changed it at a really significant point, and it resulted in a red card. No one wants to see a red card other than Lincoln City in that occasion, and in that instance, but ultimately it is what it is, and maybe we could appeal it, maybe Oxford United will try and appeal it. I've heard from somebody that was at the game, he thinks it was a red card. I've heard people say it was nowhere near a red card. For me, I don't know. I just simply do not know. It looked a little bit, it was starting to spice up in those sort of areas. I won't lie. It was certainly looking a little bit, looking like the game was going in one direction. That was quite a feisty encounter. Funnily enough, when that red card actually, since after that red card, really the game really sort of, I guess, through challenges slowed down. But that's the way it is. And Oxford tried to knock on the door till the end, but they weren't able to. And that's just the way it is, really. It was a bit too little, too late with 10 men. It's just, quite unfortunate in that sense, and quite a difficult one. Again, if you just joined us, please leave your thoughts on the game in that live chat. It's free to do so. I'll be reading out all of your thoughts. Paul Groves has already done so no change there. I'll be doing that as well. Right, let's switch over to the Analyst Hub. Let's do this, as we always do. We'll start off with the tactical ball, because I want to highlight a few things in this game. I want to highlight the left-hand side for Oxford United, Steve Seddon. I thought he had a pretty poor game today. I thought he was exposed on too many occasions. I thought Whittaker was certainly causing him too many problems. And you know what? If I'm being honest, I think Morgan Whittaker maybe was slightly made to look a little bit better than maybe he is. Or maybe made his game a little bit easier. Maybe not better than he is. Maybe that's a bit harsh. But maybe was allowed to have much more space to try and do different things on the pitch. Because Steve Seddon's positioning today, I thought was wrong. Whether or not that was Steve Seddon's decision, whether or not that was Carl Robinson's decision, I don't know. But whoever was in charge of making sure that Steve Seddon was in the right position for the game got it wrong, because Whittaker, we know before the game, we highlighted if he starts, which I think he would do, he's a very, very talented player. He's a very, very good player, and especially at this level, he'll cause problems. You give him the time, you give him the space, he is going to run at players. He's going to be direct at running at players and cause problems. And Steve said if he's at the halfway line today, like he was in that area so many times, Whittaker's got so much room to run into. McNally can try and cover. And in that sense, but it'd be so much easier and so much better and so much more. There'd be so much more stability in that back line if Steve Seddon comes in that position there and able to. And I know that attacking threat maybe is nullified slightly with him coming a little bit deeper, but ultimately you're a fullback. Your first job has to be to defend, and that for me. Even as someone that likes Carl Robinson's style of play when it comes to playing with those modern fullbacks that like helping the attack and like putting balls into the box and likes to get in with attacks, you still have to do your job. And the first and foremost, your job is to defend. Too many goals this season, and I heard Jerome say about it as well. I'm not going to pretend like it was my point. I heard this on the radio after, and I completely agree. There's been too many goals this season coming in from the opposition's left-hand side. That is Steve Seddon's side. That's a problem. Sorry, right-hand side. It'll be their right-hand side towards Steve Seddon. Will that be? Yeah, right-hand side towards Steve Seddon. There's been too many chances as well on that left-hand side with Sam Long. But for Steve Seddon as well, we saw today why that stat is not looking the way it is, because and why it is looking the way it is, because he can be exposed far too easily when he's playing that high up. He's almost playing as a winger. He's not getting back to defend as much as he can do, and we see he can defend. He's a very, very good fullback, and I'm not digging Steve Seddon out because we know how well he's done. He's done a fantastic job since he's joined the football club, and going forward, we've seen the balls in the penalty area. He's been very, very good, but today I thought he allowed Morgan Whittaker into the game far too much, and that again cost us in a lot of ways, and that's disappointing. You can't allow a player of Morgan Whittaker's quality into the game like he did, and again that again is a really quite concerning part and quite a concerning aspect of this game. I talk about Maguire in this game as well, ex-Oxford United player. He's somebody that's going to cause problems. Maybe not always in the footballing sense, in terms of what he does with his feet, but sometimes what he does with his mouth, or sometimes what he does with other parts of his body. He can frustrate oppositions. He can really cause that sense of frustration, and he did that. I think a lot of players were quite frustrated with the way that Maguire approached the game. Sykes was maybe lucky not to get a booking, another inconsistent decision by the referee. Maybe a little bit lucky not to get not to get bookmark Sykes with his retaliation on Maguire, but he knew what he was doing. Chris Maguire. He was trying to upset Mark Sykes. He's a little bit naughty with the challenge, maybe stepping on the back of his foot, but ultimately it caused a reaction from Mark Sykes, and that's what upsets oppositions. And I think again we saw Chris Maguire upsetting opposition today, as well as actually being fairly good in areas. Not outstanding. I won't walk away from the game going he was a really, really quite influential player on the pitch in terms of what he did on the ball. But he definitely upset players today. He definitely caused a sense of frustration. And again, we saw that today. I thought Scully was good. He took his goal very, very well as well. Again, the fullbacks, I did see both the fullbacks got exposed today. And some really, really significant and important players in this Oxford United side, I think, let themselves down. I think Steve Seddon, such an important player, and he's shown that this season. He let himself down today by allowing Morgan Whittaker the space, the room, and the ability to just basically have a bit of a free-for-all. And again, Scully was able to run at Sam Long. And then their switch of play as well was so good. They could really switch the play so well. They'd have a ball, on the right side of the pitch. He'd be able to pin that ball over to Scully. He'd get in behind. He'd make a really good run. He'd cut inside and scored a goal, and that's exactly how the goal came for the first one. So again, they were very, very good, and they had answers to a lot of Oxford United questions, but we didn't offer enough questions. We didn't ask enough questions, and we didn't have many answers to their questions. And you put those two together, you put those two aspects to a game together, and you're going to get a quite disappointing result. We saw that again, I think, quite easily today. I'm going to get rid of the ball there. It's a little bit frustrating because I want to just get this. I want to get a diagram out here as well, because I want to just quickly speak about a few Taylor misses that were a little bit worrying in that first half. He was obviously on the left side of the pitch. We got him. This is sort of a second half snapshot. But I thought in the first half he was really, really he had a really good chance, and he missed a good chance. And you don't know what happens. You don't know how a game can change if he takes that chance early on. If you just join us, please make sure you leave a like and subscribe. But most importantly, give your thoughts in the live chat. You don't know how Matty Taylor feels or how the game changes. Hindsight's a wonderful thing. In the first half, he had a really good chance to score. He missed a one-on-one chance, and it is one of those where you don't know what's going to happen until he scores it. You don't know what's going to happen if he scores it. And again, how does this game change? Again, like I keep saying, hindsight's a wonderful thing. How does the game change if Matty Taylor makes us go 1-0 up after 20 minutes or 10 minutes or whenever it was? So that's quite interesting, but also quite disappointing and quite a flat one when you look back on it. In terms of individual performance, we spoke about the defence. The fullbacks are a bit worrying. I thought Williams didn't really come back and defend and help Seddon out. And if you've got a fullback that wants to play as a left winger for too much of the game and not really mark Whittaker enough, and then you've got Williams who didn't come back and help defensively as much as maybe think he should have done, your left-hand side is going to get exposed for the entire game, and it did. Why did that left side get exposed, or what if that left side of the pitch did get exposed? What would our two of players must have done for that allowed to be happen? Well, it would have been our fullback out of position. It would have been our winger not coming back to help defend. You put those two together, that's going to cause a lot of room for Ioma and Whittaker on that right-hand side for them, or on the left side of the pitch, depending on right side for the opposition. That's going to cause a lot of issues. Why did it cause a lot of issues? If that was going to happen, what would have to have happened? Well, it would have been two players not being defensively on it and not being honest with themselves when it comes to being defensively solid. And I think both of those were pretty clear to see. I thought White had quite a quiet game. I think he'll be a little bit disappointed with his influence on the pitch. Maguire, we didn't really see much from Cameron Brannagan. Obviously, he got injured and he didn't really do much before that game. Before that point in the game, and Herbie Kane got sent off. So and he wasn't having a great game either. He made a few decent touches. He spun the ball about a few times and then did what Herbie Kane can do, make things look quite easy. But other than that, he didn't do too much at all. It's just quite disappointing, really. And it's again, like I said, it's the repercussions of this result. How do you go against Wycombe? How are Oxford Utd going to set up against Wycombe? I don't know. How are we going to deal with this now? Is this performance going to, bring a sense of disappointment? And is it going to upset this Oxford Utd side going into a really big away game next Saturday? I don't know. I still look forward to the game. I think it's going to be a really, really good atmosphere. I think it's going to be a really good day. I look forward to bringing you a match day experience for that one. But it's a little bit disappointing. Really quickly before we finish up, the average rating showed that Oxford Utd certainly weren't the better side today, and I can definitely vouch for that. Lincoln City were better all over the pitch, and they got an average rating altogether of 7.09. Oxford 6.61, which is really, really poor. Herbie Kane, of course, with that red card. Luke McNally apparently got man of the match. Probably fair. I probably would give it to McNally. You can see there why did that right hand side over here have a really, really good game today? Why did Morgan Whittaker? Why did Ioma have a fantastic game? Well, you can see there. We spoke about Steve Seddon not being great in defensively, or Ryan Williams coming back and helping defensively. So I think that pretty much. I think that sums out quite well. If we look at that momentum graph, it's pretty much. It's Lincoln in a first half spell there, but then quite on and off throughout the game. And you can see there we tried to knock on the door right at the end, but it wasn't to be. But areas in the game, it was a little bit sort of flat, but also quite end-to-end in the sense that both teams sort of had possession, both teams had momentum. I don't think we had... We did have overall more possession, but I think in that first half they must have had more. They did, 52% possession. That's looking at the stats straight away. I could see that. You could see in that first half they had much more of the ball. The second half we tried to get hold of the ball more. The message probably was at half-time, get hold of the ball. We did that, but we conceded a goal and got a red card, so it's quite difficult to really sort of impact the game in that sense. We bring all those stats up there. We have more shots. They have more on target. Pass accuracy here, 77% pass accuracy. We actually had a better pass accuracy. That surprises me. They had more dribbles. They had better with their long balls. They had better accurate passes. Well, we actually made more passes, which is quite interesting. In terms of big chances, they had one. We had one. They missed one. We scored one. Yeah, it was a poor game. It wasn't great for Oxford, and for me, it's not really about it is for me more about where do we go from here. That is exactly what it is for me. It's where do we go from here, and how do we pick ourselves up now going into a really quite difficult set of games. Paul Gross says no one really stood out. Almost everyone was quite sloppy, feeling a bit worried about next week. Now I'm feeling a bit worried about it as well, Paul, to be honest. I am feeling quite worried about it. I don't really know how we're going to go into it. It's going to be interesting to see how we set up. How does Carl Robinson set up today? I don't know. Next week. I'll get it right. I don't know how he's going to do that, and I'm intrigued to see how he's going to do it. Let's hope this has been a fluke couple of games and we can get back to normal, because 2 huge games coming up now. We've got 2 big games coming up, Paul. You're spot on. We've got 2 really, really big games coming up, and we've got to turn our A game on, because we've got to be at our best if we're going to get anything from these next games or anything like we did today. I think we're going to struggle. I think we really, really are going to struggle. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for coming in. Bit of a flat one today, but you can probably see why. It was quite a disappointing performance, quite a flat game. Thank you everybody that joined in for the pre-match chat. Thank you everybody that's tuned in for this match reaction as well. If you're watching this as a live episode, then thank you so much for the interaction. Leave a like and subscribe. If you're watching this as a recording episode, don't be afraid to give your thoughts in the comments down below. I'll be responding to all of those comments in the comments section below. Thank you so much for watching. Disappointing result today, but big game next week. Next Sunday, we'll be releasing my match day experience. I head to Adams Park to watch Wycombe against Oxford United. I look forward to that, and I look forward to hearing your thoughts. There will be a podcast episode, I'm sure, between now and then, though, so do not worry about that. Hit the notification bell as well, so you never miss an episode of the podcast. Take care, stay safe. I'll see you all very, very soon.